Another one. This one's big. Not so big. Little one. This one's a brookie. Little brook trout. Probably long enough to keep. Another salmon. Not keepable though. Oh, I just had a huge one. Maddie, I got one. Oh. It's like the same one almost. Okay, if you're still with us after that little intro, I want to thank you for joining my channel. My name is Zach, and I like to do a lot of fishing and outdoor activities. I don't get a lot of time to do it, so when I do get a chance, I really take advantage of it. That was actually the last day of about a week-long fishing trip I took somewhere up in the northern woods of Maine for relief. So over these next couple of video clips, I'll go ahead and explain what I'm doing and how I was catching fish. In a couple of other ways, I'll break down my what strategies to use in certain parts of the water. And a lot of these tactics and insights I learned from a very close buddy of mine named John and another very close friend of mine named Devin. A lot of what you'll see is not my own. It's actually just been implemented. I just want to give credit where credit is due and just share with you a couple of things that might help you if you're new to the fishing game, and maybe just give you a couple of tips that might help you catch a little bit more fish on the end of your line, okay? Thanks for joining, and hope to see you on the next video. Okay, so what you see here is a Gulp Minnow. This one happens to be a 3-inch blue and silver shiner, I believe. You get them all different kinds of sizes, colors, types, but up here catching salmon, they like the blue and the silver typically. Anything that shines like that, you're going to get nibbles, bites, and you're going to reel them in. So we found it best to use red snell hooks, no spinners or beads on them, nothing like that. Just a red hook with a dead float set up with this. What you'll want is you'll want like a weighted bobber or a float bobber. You'll want to be able to control the amount of line that's below your bobber, per se. You don't want the bobber just freely traveling up and down the line, otherwise the whole setup, it's pointless, it won't work. This works pretty well when you're fishing in pretty rapid waters, because salmon like to travel up that white water with all the bubbles, highly oxygenated. That's why they're so full of energy all the time, and they're super strong. So anyway, that's the setup I use here, and we'll see how long it takes before I reel one in. So what I'm doing is I am mending the line. Every time you cast it into a current, the bobber starts to float down the river at the speed of the current, and the line starts to go a little bit faster, especially if you're using a weighted bobber that takes a minute. But what you do is you need a longer pole, obviously, like 10 foot's pretty good. That's what I'm using, a 10-foot pole. Keep the line up and just kind of whip it back behind the bobber, so the line is like in the air and then only a little bit in the water, but you want it floating behind the bobber, upstream of the bobber as it goes down, so that the indicator sits upright and it floats down the river. Now you can change the amount of line that's below that indicator by simply sliding the indicator or bobber stop up and down the line, and that's how you set the depth of where you'll be fishing. The deeper you fish, the bigger the fish you catch. That's the whole concept to it. But you want is that dead bobber float effect, so that the line below it is doing the same thing. It just floats up and down the river like that, nice and dead, just at the current's pace. And fish will be swimming either up or down that pathway there, and they'll see an easy meal right there, and they'll try to swallow the whole thing. They'll bite right at it. And that's when you'll see the indicator go down under the water, so you set your hook and you reel. Simple.
Got a big one. I got a big one.
Now I'll admit the fish wasn't as big as I thought, but that's because the current was pulling it away from me as it was fighting as well, so it felt a lot bigger than it really was. Which brings me to my next point. Make sure when you hook all your gear up, you want in a current like this no less than like 12-pound minimum line. If you're Gonna push it. You can go 8 pound, but I lost 3 or 4 lures using 8 pound line. And once I switched to a little bit heavier and started using 12 and above, like I had no problem. So just make sure your gear is set up to fish in an environment that you choose. And always bring the proper backup with you just in case like a pole snaps. Always have a spare. It stinks when you get out there, snag up, break something, something doesn't work, and you trip ends because you don't have enough gear to go with you. So just be mindful.
That's strong. Yeah. Back in the river.
Now this next place is kind of the same concept, using the dead float setup, but little different location. To the left, I couldn't get a good shot. I'm sorry, but there's a waterfall that goes all the way across the river. It's not huge. It's only probably like 6-7 feet high. But you could actively see fish jumping up the rapids, up the waterfall, traversing up the river. So it was a good place to fish. It was really neat. I promise next time to go get better gear. This was all spur of the moment, so I just grabbed my iPhone, stuck it in the rocks, and this is the best angle I could come up with that wasn't going to get completely drenched, because as you see, it is really, really wet here. I'm next to a waterfall, and that day was the one day on this trip it was really raining. So we went out and just kind of pressed our luck there at the waterfall for a little bit. This was the only day that we were able to get there, and I could get this spot right next to the waterfall. Every other time we went down there, this spot was taken by other people. It's very popular. So anyway, first few casts, I tried the same concept. I cast it over into the rapids, and I mend my line, and I let it float down the river, and I didn't really get any bites that I could tell doing that. So I adjusted my strategy. And what I did was I just casted right in front of me there eventually, and I let it kind of just dead float right there at the corner of the waterfall where it meets the rocks. It wasn't in the rapids taking it away. It was in the little pool right there in front of the waterfall. As fish come up and they change their mind, they were, I guess, running into it, and it started to work. So I decided to film it, and it was just luck of the draw. As I turned my camera on for the first time at this location, I caught the biggest brook trout of the trip. This was my 14-incher. Took this baby home, and we ate it. It was delicious.